I know I'm human. If you were all these things, then you just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why? Why?
For a girl like you to come into my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you, the love that will survive. I've been waiting for someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life.
You bitch! You called me a bitch!
What's in the basket?
Open season!
How do we know she is alive?
Say, please stop it. There's no more time. You've got to. Please stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop
Отстрел индюшек.
Hello, everyone. I'm here with Ian Irza from Black Glove Mysteries. He's a co-host with Greg Amortis over at the Land of the Creeps Network. How's it going, Ian?
Pretty good, you?
No, I'm doing fine. I'm doing as good as I can. We're here to talk about, I think, one of the most insane, ridiculous, over-the-top Australian exploitation, ozploitation, possibly horror film by Brian Trenchard-Smith, Turkey Shoot, aka Escape 2000, and I'm sure multiple other names. So, yeah, you ready?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So this one kind of was Trenchard's third film, after what, BMX Bandits and The Man from Hong Kong. So we all know that in Australia at the time they had they could kind of take advantage of the government funding. So a bunch of weird movies came out around that time. Canada had the same deal in the 70s and 80s, where you see a lot of bizarre kind of horror films come out. So Turkey Shoot actually was produced by Hemdale. I believe that Hemdale had a script or something along those lines. It was originally supposed to be like exploitation kind of prison movie, but he updated it and made it kind of a post-apocalyptic totalitarian society 1984 kind of deal. So essentially what we have here is just a group of prisoners, most of them wrongly, in the prison camp, and you would say all of them in this kind of environment, in this crazy prison camp, and they're forced on a most deadly game, hard target kind of style, life or death kind of thing.
What's weird is in the world we live in now, and I'm not even talking about what side I'm even on politically. That's not even where I'm going. But It's like in the world we live in now, this movie feels more plausible now.
Well, I mean, stuff like this has happened over history. We just kind of don't want to ever talk about it. You know what I mean? Obviously, Holocaust, Japanese internment camps. It's just
the Holocaust was a vibe I kind of got while watching the film again, because the people at the prison, they don't treat these people as human whatsoever. So it's one of those things where it does remind you of real life atrocities where people just don't see each other as human or less than.
For sure. I think that Steve Railsback was such a bizarre choice as a lead here. The same year he did Deadly Games and Trick or Treats. Trick or Treats is an awful movie. I mean, it's
pretty bad. It might be my least favorite horror movie of 1982. It's not. I mean, I haven't seen quite as many as you have, and I don't overly hate it, but I'd probably give it like a 4 out of 10.
I'm in the same range. I mean, it's what if they made Halloween without any slashing?
Yeah, it really is.
Deadly Games. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say he's kind of an interesting choice because he's like, first of all, he's like my height. He's like 5'7". Like you can see it, and he just doesn't seem like an action hero. Like it's one of those things. And you can make believable action heroes that are that height. I mean, there's plenty of martial artists that are probably that tall, but it's just hard to believe him at times as an action hero. It's funny. I've seen him in other films, and I believe him more in those films. Like he played one of the villains, I think, in Alligator 2. And he's actually pretty good in that film from what I remember. Not that the movie's very good, but I remember him being pretty good in it.
Yeah, he pops up in a lot of strange films and a lot of strange performances. The Wind, he's very off and weird in that. The Nico Makaraskis movie. He's bizarre in, what's the one? Devil's Rejects, he has a small role. He's in a slew of these movies. Life Force is another one where it's just like we need a strange kind of character actor as a lead, and sometimes he's fantastic, sometimes he's a little off. I just wonder. I know that Nico Makaraskis in the special features said that he had a drinking problem along with Wings Hauser in the special features, and the interviews with Steve Railsback about the movie, he wasn't too thrilled with it. He seemed like he was talking a little slow, not bad or dumb or anything, but he was just a little slow talking about the movie.
Yeah, I think it seemed like he thought it was going to be one thing and that it wasn't. Then he seemed overly critical about the money they lost and them not being able to replicate what they were going to do without that money.
Well, they talked about the original script in the opening. They were supposed to do kind of show the modern day society instead of having the stock footage. They're kind of show the flashbacks, I think, more. And there was actually supposed to be a villain in a helicopter with a helicopter chase and stuff, a fifth kind of villain. So, I mean, the plot of this movie is very, game of death, which Running Man, Hard Target, Most Dangerous Game, Naked Prey. Essentially, you are hunted by a group of baddies. Obviously, you're outgunned, you're outmanned, and they track you down here. This time, it is pushed forward, I think, due to the graphic kind of violence, which Trenchard-Smith said he put in there because, he wanted to kind of have it stand out. That kind of backfired when it came to the critics, but eventually it obviously became a cult movie. And I never thought this movie really had a negative, kind of reception.
Yeah, I didn't really know much about the reception. when I watched the bonus features, I found it interesting because the first time I watched this, I didn't even think about a backstory. This was only my second time watching it, actually second and third time because I watched the commentary again. But I didn't like. It was something I thought about this last time where I was like, where is the story of explaining a little more who these people are and what this world is, like why they need to be brought to this sort of re-education camp or whatever it's considered. And then when I found out, oh, our budget got slashed and 15 pages got cut, and we were originally going to have some more scenes explaining what the world was before these prisoners come in, I was like, okay, that actually makes sense. And if they were going to cut anything out, that kind of makes more sense to cut than anything else.
You know, I never really noticed that it is a bit choppy, not just the hands getting chopped off, but the story is a bit choppy at times. In the beginning, we are in the camp for longer than I think we should be. And Trenchard-Smith mentions that. But to be honest, that really doesn't hold this movie back for me. I think it's immensely fun. I am a demented kind of individual that likes, kind of the hardcore kind of action style funness of it. And it does hold back a bit. They could have done a little bit further with the rape scene, although the aftermath is nasty enough. But I think that it does hold back at times. And he said Trenchard-Smith actually compared it to, he said, Fulci-esque gore. So he's aware of Fulci
that's what he
at
was
the
going
time.
for, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. I'm glad that was his inspiration, if anything was. But there are some pretty gory moments. There's a really gory, like, I don't even know if I want to call it a headshot, but a gun literally blowing someone up. It's almost as good as like the gun blowing someone up in the fourth Rambo movie, although this was at least done practically compared to that, which I think was all CGI. So.
Well, I mean, it's not just a head; it's the shoulders, it's everything, and it's that moment. I've seen this one, I think, a couple of times before, so I was exactly waiting for that moment where it hits. One thing that I think you need for this kind of movie to make it successful, like in a kind of hunting kind of movie like this, is a good group of bad guys, and I think the bad guys in this are all very memorable, very kind of funny in their demented kind of ways, and they stand out. Of course, Thatcher, named after, Thatcher from Britain at the time with the whole video nasty, Margaret Thatcher, and like censorship and everything like that. You can tell where Smith stands on a lot of this stuff, looking through his kind of filmography and everything like that. But also love Roger Ward in this. I think he's probably one of the standout characters for sure. And all the other baddies are great too.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw Roger Ward in this. I'm like, where the heck have I seen him before? Like, I'm like, he looks familiar. And I was like, oh, he was in Boar. He's much older in that film, but he has a part in that where he's friends with John Jarrett's character in that film, which is a pretty good creature feature horror movie.
I've actually not seen Boar, but I know he was friends with John Jarrett in real life as well. They were mates. He called and referred to him. So I mean, I always remembered him. He's in Man from Hong Kong. He's also in Ladies Stay Dead. See, the thing about the Australian film, scene is there's only like, let's be honest, like 20 or 30 actors. So like almost every one of my pop in it has John Jarrett in it from the 70s.
John Jarrett Roger Ward or nowadays Robert Taylor. It seems like he's in every single Australian film I see. So yeah,
like you even put in like an art film like Picnic at Hanging Rock, and you're like, is that John Jarrett? For like 5 seconds, like what is happening? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my favorite scene, I think, that stuck out to me forever, besides the head explosion, was the scene where Roger Ward has that girl in front of him because they're basically just breaking him down, and this girl has to recite this kind of memorized bullshit that they have in their head, and he's in front of her like shadowboxing, like throwing his fist in her hand. And he's an enormous man. It's so like, Jesus Christ, he's such a bully, and he's perfect. He looks like it with a mustache and a shaved head.
Yeah, it's interesting. You there's like a really cool hierarchy in this prison because you have him who's like the lead guard, then you have Gus Mercurio's character who's like even beneath him, and like at one point, he does the whole thing where he's basically trying to rape Olivia Hussey, and then Ritter, who's played by Roger Ward, steps in and he's like, no, she's reserved for someone else. Stop it. Like there's a cool hierarchy you kind of get here in this prison between all these people.
I really like the so we said we have these kind of like extra guys that come in, and they're like rich people that are basically paying or funding this whole facility so they can basically hunt people. And we have like kind of he's a governor of some sort. He's this overweight guy who's just a complete like chauvinistic asshole. We have the kind of dominatrix woman who has peculiar taste, and she says she's very hard to please. where she hints at kind of just being, a sadist. And then we have the kind of crazy guy who comes full with a circus performer who beats some. When I first saw this movie and the character comes out with that top hat, I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, right? Because he's like a monster, and I was like, "What is this?"
He's like a Hammer horror villain that would have been played by David Prowse in another movie.
Exactly. Yeah. It's weird that David Prowse actually played the strongman in Vampire Circus. He actually looked less
That's what I was
monster
thinking of.
No, for sure. He looked less monster-like than in this movie. So, like, he is creepy as shit, and that's like again an element of comedy. I can't imagine that being in the original script. I don't know where it came from. I have such a bizarre idea. It's just weird. That guy though, I can't think. I think he's a British actor, possibly the one who's riding on the. He has one of the best lines in the movie, of course, when he screams "Open season" with the machine gun. That's a great scene. I guess when we compare it to like other these style movies, I think that it is pretty gory in comparison. You know what I mean? There's a couple really kind of show-stopping moments that I think would push this over into the horror category.
Yeah, I would agree with that because it definitely has moments of exploitation with the two. Basically, there's one scene that's a borderline rape scene, one scene that they just cut away from completely before that even happens, and then you've got the gory moments. You got the guy being blown up with a gun. You got the machete through the back of the head, which was probably my favorite effect.
That was good.
The guy being run over by the car, then the guy being split in half by the bulldozer. So there's a ton of good stuff there if that's what you're looking for. And all these people do get their comeuppance also if that's something you're looking for. All these villains. So
yeah, I mean that's always a satisfying kind of deal there. Like I said, Steve Railsback's character didn't have much kind of background. Once you think about it, it just jumps you into it. I don't know if the movie would be better with someone else in that role. I think he's fine. But yeah. I really, he doesn't stand out as much as, I think if they put another actor in that, like a Sam Neill from New Zealand or something like that, I think that he would be a stronger. I don't even know what was New Zealand. When did the movie Let Sleeping Dogs Lie come out? Let Sleeping Dogs Lie, the New Zealand film. Sam Neill and Attack Force Z around the same time, I think. So Sam Neill was starting to get his start, but obviously they wanted some star power because I think Steve Railsback was coming off The Stuntman, which is a popular movie, and Helter Skelter and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm interested in watching Helter Skelter now because I think I had heard of that film, but I never knew it was him who played Charles Manson in it, so that might be interesting to watch.
It's a blind spot for me as well. It's always brought up so many times, 76, but it's kind of a long version of a movie. It's a TV miniseries. It's never had, it's had a DVD and that's it. So, I mean, you hold out for this long. You're like, what's another 5-6 years? But who knows if it'll ever come out at that point.
I think Michael Craig is really good in this movie as Thatcher too. He's got some good monologues where he's talking about obedience is freedom or whatever. All the long monologues he has, and I remember looking at his credits. I'm like, how is this guy not in a James Bond movie? How is he not in the background of one of them? He just seems like a guy who would have been in one of them, but apparently he's not. But he's to this movie in a way where Richard Johnson is to Zombie to me. His performance and how he kind of keeps it committed in a way where you believe him. You almost think he never comes across as sympathetic or empathetic in any way, but there's still a thing where you almost feel like you can kind of understand him in a way for whatever reason. I don't know why, but
he's subdued. He doesn't overact.
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah.
And everyone else in the movie is kind of a caricature. From Roger Moore to the lady with the explosive crossbow arrows, and the guy with the circus performer, and the other guy. They're just all kind of crazy kind of characters, and he is just kind of subdued villain. And his speech, what he gives in the very beginning, or when he says work is life, it sounds so much like the Michael Lerner speech in No Escape, which has a lot of similarities to this. Have you ever seen it, No Escape, with Ray Liotta?
I have. Yep.
Very much like this when he says society has no further use for you, whatnot. I feel like Escape 2000 kind of lifted from Turkey Shooting Away.
It probably did. And what's interesting about this film is I wonder if this was it wasn't. It wasn't the first adaptation of The Most Dangerous Game by any means, but I almost wonder was it one of the first ones to do this whole class division thing where you've had the rich people talking about the excess they have because of how much money they have, and being able to do that just because of that. Because there have been many movies since, Hard Target being one of them, that have done something similar.
And Hard Target even has the group of special hunters that are all ridiculously dressed and stand out, like sort of like Seth Thorson comes in there, and a couple other guys, and yeah, it's a lot like that. And you know what? I never registered how much this was that. You know what I mean?
Well, there have been a lot of movies that are based off of The Most Dangerous Game. Then you had a lot of films that are based off of The 10th Victim that are kind of similar in the same way, where you have people being hunted in like a game show setting versus like, you know, just anywhere really. But a lot of movies have kind of done this idea. Yeah, The Running Man and The Condemned, the WWE Studios movie.
Yeah, with Stone Cold.
Yeah. So there have been a lot of movies that have done stuff like this. They apparently based it on some like a Hammer film called like Return to Blood Island or something like that. What was it?
It's the pirate one with Christopher Lee, right?
I don't know if it's that one. I think that's a different one. No, that's
that's Stranglers of Bombay, maybe.
I'm not sure which one that is, but the main star of it is Andre Morel, who was another big Hammer horror player. But yeah, that was one of the movies that he apparently took inspiration from, that and The Most Dangerous Game. He said it was like a combination of that Hammer horror movie and The Most Dangerous Game. So yeah. I got to look at whatever Hammer horror movie that was and look at it, because I like most of the Hammer films. It's just there are some that are like on the B sides, so to speak, that I haven't seen. So
that one I haven't seen, because I don't think when I was going through it I considered it a horror film, but now I go back and rewatch it for sure. I always loved Andre Morel. Isn't he the Morel? Oh yeah. Does he play Watson in
yes.
How It's a Big
Yeah.
He's very good at that. Yeah. So I think that pointing out some performances, Olivia Hussey does a solid job. She seems genuinely terrified of the entire movie, though, and she's always been a solid actress. A very unique look to me. And you know, she's in It, Psycho 4, Black Christmas, of course, but she's good in this, and I always forget she's in this, to be honest.
Well, it's she plays like a believable character who has no business being in this setting. She really didn't do anything wrong. They give the backstory for her, and it's like, it really doesn't seem like she was doing anything wrong, but it's you know, it feels real, because the thing that happens with Lynda Stoner's character also is it seems like she just refused advances from a man, and she was she was accused of being a prostitute. So a lot of these people here have no reason to really be there at all. They didn't really do anything to deserve it, and she like epitomizes that, because she's just not cut out for this. I mean, no. She becomes tougher as the movie goes along, basically for being forced into the circumstances that she is, which is kind of cool. She goes through a progression, just like anybody would. And it makes sense that Steve Railsback wants to save her, because let's be real, I would too.
Especially someone innocent like that too, who's nice.
Yeah, but she's a really unique actress to me. She always has been, because she has like she's British, but she also she's Argentine as well. So it seems like she always has like a half British accent and a half like South American accent, and it's really unique. And just anything she's done, she always stands out. There's a Hong Kong movie I like with her that she was in with Vernon Wells. I can't remember it at the time. Undeclared War. That movie's awesome.
I think I did watch that.
Terrorist. Yeah, she plays a terrorist
really
in that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Vinegar Syndrome put it on under their archive label, and I remember watching that movie.
She apparently was terrified filming as well. Like, she just had so many issues with being in the outback or wherever they were filming, Queensland. I don't know exactly if that would be considered the Australian outback or not. I don't know exactly. I don't know my geography very well of Australia, but she was terrified of the snakes and everything like that the whole time. And everyone had said it just did not seem like she had very much fun making the film. It kind of comes across on screen in a good way, I guess.
So when they show the totalitarian society, the first kind of movies, like the look of it reminds me of Zero population growth with Oliver Reed for sure. It also kind of has some Logan's Run kind of look to it. You know what I mean? Like, you see that, like, it seems futuristic, the Nazi kind of outfits they're wearing. I do really kind of wish we would have got to see more of the totalitarian society. But then again, I think that they should have stuck with just more of the hunt, you know what I mean? Or or like, or had a little bit of both. Cut out some of the camp for sure, some of the camp development, because it doesn't develop the characters all that well in the first place.
No, it doesn't. And, you talked about it already. They cut out one other hunter, was supposed to be like some Australian radio or television, I think late night television host, a guy named Graham Kennedy, I think. And like they basically said, imagine if like David Letterman were playing one of these hunters or something like that. So they said that was the level of his popularity apparently, and he couldn't end up being in the film. But that's why with Griffin they needed to make another reason why he ended up being part of the game. So he gets into that fight with the guy with the glasses. I can't remember his character's name, but he gets into a fight with him so he could be a part of the game. And like Griffin, I didn't even this could have explained one problem I had, where Griffin's plan of attack once he gets his hands on the gun is so stupid. Like it really is. Like
he just sits in the middle of the field.
He shoots at the first thing he sees, which is this giant truck, and it's like he's the biggest physical threat of all of them, like by far, because he's like 6'6". So it's like, why not try to get closer to these people? It's just his plan of attack was really bad, and then not wanting to take Lynda Stoner with him. I'm like, if Lynda Stoner asked me to take her anywhere, I would do it. So, yeah.
The one thing that is kind of funny too is the guy just sits in the field shooting like ridiculously.
Yeah.
He's just not gonna make it. He was just such a like gonna die, and he was. Oh, I forgot. I was thinking, David Letterman. You never remember the dumb skits they used to do on SNL? Hey, you got any gum? He just like, hey, you got any guns? You know what I mean? But it's like, that would actually probably added a layer too, because the rich kind of like the famous like celebrity killing people would have been actually really fun.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, who's your favorite kind of villain
in this? Probably Roger Ward. I think he's having a lot of fun in this, and you could tell he comes across as a guy who's having fun, and he's still a fun villain despite his sadism. But even when he fights Steve Railsback, he's like, "Come here, little guy!" Like that he's doing some fun stuff, and that's
I think he threatens to rape him at one point. I may be mistaken.
I think he does. Yeah, I think he does. He does. That's right.
Did I hear that correctly? Was that ADR?
Yeah.
But I think I like Roger Ward, but I also really like Jessica. Is it Jessica or Jennifer?
Jennifer, I think, yeah.
She's actually the most badass. If you think about it, Thatcher has a little helper that lures people, Gus, that lures them out into the woods. And then the governor guy, who's absolute garbage, who gets shot in the nuts, deservingly so, he has Roger Ward. And then, of course, the guy, open season guy, has the actual circus monster with him. So she's the only one that goes by herself. And she's kind of like, comes from that kind of rich background where they like ride horses, or like fancy horses and stuff. And she just fits perfect. It's kind of funny. She's just like, when they set up all their weapons and stuff, and she's like, what's that one do? Explodes. Check it out. That's kind of fun stuff. Like I said, it's somewhere of a mixture between like Hard Target and The Running Man.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, Hard Target doesn't quite have the sort of exploitation and really violent moments. Like, it's certainly a violent film, but this film stands out because like the kills feel like something out of like a slasher movie, or what a slasher movie should be, because so many slasher movies were edited way worse than they should have been compared to this film.
The scene that I think is probably the most horrific is probably the aftermath of the girl after getting raped, but also the part where they have those two gasoline containers and they're just like beating the guy up and kicking them.
Oh yeah,
that's like next level torture. I
remember watching it and thinking, what are they doing here? And I'm like, I didn't understand exactly what was going on up until you see all the gasoline in the sand and then just getting ready to light all the gasoline on fire. Yeah.
That was pretty brutal. What other films have you seen by Trenchard-Smith? Are you a fan of his other films like Dead End Drive-In and stuff?
I have not seen Dead End Drive-In. I do want to watch that, and I do want to watch BMX Bandits, but I love The Man from Hong Kong. That film is awesome. It's got like, the big fight on Ayers Rock, and Lazenby's my favorite James Bond, so it kind of makes sense. And one of the reasons why he's my favorite James Bond, and I fully admit this, is because I've seen him his physicality in other films. His like some of the Hong Kong films he appears in, specifically that one, he's just awesome to watch on screen as a fighter, more so than any other actor who played James Bond.
He's also large. He's a very big guy, and you could tell his body frame, his bone structure is huge. Like I wouldn't want to fight that guy.
Well, he's a more versatile actor than people gave him credit for. I think basically leaving the James Bond role, I don't know if it blacklisted him, but it seemed like he just had a hard time getting movie roles. But you watch him in Who Saw Her Die, where he lost like 40 pounds to play the role of the starving, artist. That like he's really good in that. So
yeah, that's a good movie too. Except the ending. The ending's a cop out, and I always play that. The ending cracks me up.
The ending with the guy saying what he says at the end. Yeah,
I was like,
I think they do that for censorship reasons, though. I think they did that because they had to avoid some kind of thing with the church, or it was a thing where they had to clearly know that the villain was being punished. So they just had that one line at the end of the film, which is really silly.
I always laugh. I was like, Fulci wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that into a torture duck. Like, no, he did not do that. But as far as do you want to compare it to other Australian movies and see what you think? Better or worse then?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many I've actually seen, so we'll have to go with that. But I don't know how many I've actually seen in terms of other Australian films, other exploitation films. There haven't been that many.
Okay, so all you have to say is better or worse. Better or worse than Next of Kin?
Better.
Better or worse than Patrick?
Worse.
Better or worse than Mad Max?
Ooh. I'm actually going to say better than that one. Better than the first one.
Road Warrior?
Worse.
Wake and Fright?
Worse.
So I mean, this sits there. I mean, there's some other ones we could do. Like Mad Dog Morgan is one that I've actually not had a chance to watch.
I haven't seen that one either.
What about Game of Death movies? Better than Death movies, the Game of Death films. Better or worse than Most Dangerous Game?
Like the 1930s one?
That's the classic one, which I've not seen. I know that's bad, but I know.
No, I have seen it. No, it's better. I think it's a little bit better than that one, but I do like that film.
Naked Prey?
Better.
Hard Target?
Worse.
I agree. Running Man?
I actually think I like it better. I think The Running Man. I think the problem with that film is it has a very TV look because it was directed by a guy who makes TV stuff, and I don't think it's as good as I think it was when I was a kid. This movie feels more violent and it goes all out, I think, a little more.
Lucio Fulci's New Gladiators, or what is it, Rome 2872 AD. I've always remembered it under New Gladiators.
As much as I hate to say it, better, but that it would not go that way for every Italian post-apocalyptic movie. Most Italian post-apocalyptic movies are better than that one. So
Endgame.
Worst. Endgame's one of my favorites. So.
I remember hearing that. So, do you want to compare it to 1982 movies?
Yeah, that would be fun.
So, I'm not going to do a lot of the big ones right off the bat because we know the answer, right? Better or worse than Slumber Party Massacre?
Worse.
Better or worse than Basket Case?
Ooh, still worse.
Better or worse than Pieces?
If I could say even, I would say even. That's a harder one. I think I might actually like it better just because Pieces, the ending to Pieces is, I've always found kind of silly, especially the second part of the ending. Although it's close. I don't know. That one's hard.
Better or worse than Q the Winged Serpent?
Worse. I do like that film, but worse.
Better or worse than Entity?
Worse.
Better or worse than Extra?
Better.
Better or worse than Alone in the Dark?
Better.
Better or worse than The Appointment?
Better.
Better or worse than Night Beast?
Worse.
Better or worse than Visiting Hours?
Better.
Better or worse than Friday 13th Part 3?
Worse.
Better or worse than Halloween 3?
Better.
Better or worse than Tenebrae?
Worse.
Better or worse than Creepshow?
Ooh. I'm just trying to think of all the segments again. I'm gonna say worse. Not by much, but
Better or worse than The Thing?
worse.
Better or worse than Cat People?
Worse.
Better or worse than The Slayer?
Better.
So I just did a wide range. So this sits up pretty high, probably mid-tier for you, maybe top 20.
Yeah. It's in there. I think it may have been in the top 10 at one point. I gotta reassess, but it's pretty good. Like I said, the only thing that fell off for me the second time watching it a little bit was just I wish there was more backstory and explanation. I thought that was something that was kind of missing the second viewing that I wasn't really thinking about the first time.
Yeah, the female character I can't think of her name. You said it earlier, her actress name, not Olivia Hussey, but she doesn't.
Rita.
She's almost a non-character.
Yeah, she's kind of just there. And there's an inconsistency within the film a little bit with her because she's the one who talks to Olivia Hussey and says, if you want to survive here, like, you can't be nice. You can't be like the sweet girl or whatever. And then at the end of the film, it's like she puts up no fight whatsoever against Jennifer, it seems like, at all. Like, it's one of those things. And then Olivia Hussey puts up, like, the very small amount of a fight against Jennifer and kills her with the bow and arrow. Like, it's like,
part is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But again, almost the story structure is just like Running Man, right? So she runs into her at the very end, like Maria runs into Domino, and she kills Domino. I mean, not that they had the earlier interaction, but it sure feels like that, right? I feel like this movie is a lot like Running Man and Hard Target. I feel like they definitely saw this because the book Running Man is nothing like the movie. If you've ever read the book.
No, I have read the book. It's been a while, but yeah, I did read it when I was like in high school or something.
Yeah, it's completely different. It's also interesting to mention that David Hemmings produced this movie, and Hemmings was huge into the Australian film. He directed a couple. He directed Survivor, which is the bizarre kind of crash kind of survivor kind of film, if you've ever seen that one from '81. And he produced a bunch of the other ones around that time too. What was the other one he produced? Oh geez, not Strange Behavior, but there's another couple he produced and directed around that time of the Australian horror films. What do you think of Strange Behavior in comparison to this?
I actually haven't seen it, so I can't speak on that. That's a blind spot for me. But
I think you'd really like that one, actually. It's kind of a mad scientist hybrid with slasher. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've always thought about watching it just because it was on the list of like slashers from the early 80s. So, yeah.
That's what I think might have made the Video Nasty Section 3 list, aka Dead Kids. But is there anything else you want to mention? I did enjoy the score, too. Like, I know the score is cheap, it's underutilized, but it's got like a weird kind of synthy thing that I was just like, oh, I love this. And then he was kind of the
same guy who did the score for, I think, a couple of the Mad Max movies, and he did one for another movie like in the 90s or the early 2000s that I can't remember which one, but I remember seeing his name. For the longest time, I thought it was the same Brian May from Queen, actually.
So I do want to mention the kind of fun scene where, because they pick all the people they want to hunt out, they pick them perfect. And like when they're walking by, like they have that weird eye contact moment where they see the person they hunt and they like make eye contact with each other.
That's a good nice scene.
That is a good scene because you like kind of see the person who ordered you. Like you're like a lobster or something and they ordered you for the plate. It's not that the problem with this movie is like I listened to a bunch of Brian Trenchard-Smith interviews today. And they're like, oh, we're going to talk about Turkey Shoot. And he talks about Turkey Shoot very briefly. Even in the commentary, you get information, but you kind of just get the history of it and the production notes and stuff like that. But there's not really all that much to say, except that it had some really bad critical backlash, which I don't think is just, but it was 1982 and Britain was not really fond of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the commentary was interesting in that he pointed little filmmaking things out that I didn't like. When anytime a director can do that, I enjoy it because I'm not a filmmaker and I've never really been involved with films. So it's anytime someone can point out like little things like, oh, you want to shoot at this angle when you only have so many extras, so it looks like there's a good amount of them in the background and stuff like that, and just other things that I like the fact that he wasn't like biased like in favor of his film. Like he says, oh, we could have done this differently, like the part when the little finger is twitching on the missing hands on the gun, and he's like, I wish we hadn't done that. But
Yeah,
there were fun things like that in the commentary.
He mentions it being a little too silly, and he does have a odd sense of humor, of course. He
Yeah.
always definitely has to put a little political stuff in there. His other films have that too, like Dead End Driving is all about that. Probably has a little bit more interesting kind of social issues and stuff mentioned in there. But I do think I maybe it's not a better movie, but this is a more entertaining movie than I think a lot of his films. I remember Man from Hong Kong being pretty big, helicopter chases, and Lazenby was very good in that movie. So I think that's probably technically a better movie, but this is more my kind of style,
Yeah, I think Man from Hong Kong is my favorite, just because Jimmy Wang Yu is probably my favorite of the like Hong Kong actors, like the martial arts actors. Like I just love him in movies like One Armed Swordsman, and he's great in Man from Hong Kong. He's and in real life he was actually a badass as well. Like he was willing to fight anybody. There are stories of him like fighting people off screen all the time. So on screen it works for him. Have you seen Trenchard-Smith's Leprechaun movies?
Of course, I grew up
Yeah.
with those movies.
Yeah.
That and Night of the Demons 2. Leprechaun 3 is pretty much considered the best of the bunch, and it's been years
I
since
would
watched
say it is. Leprechaun 3 is my favorite of the ones I've seen. I have not seen 4, so I can't speak on that one, although
I have.
I have not heard very good things about it. Yeah.
I think at this point in my life, like, I would be okay with Leprechaun 4 because I know what it is. When I first seen it, you're like 10, you're like, this is dumb. You're like, it's supposed to be dumb. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And now, is it too dumb for you? Good chance it is, but we're looking at Leprechaun 1, I really enjoy. 2, I think is terrible. I think Leprechaun 2 is really bad.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The first one's really, really silly, but it has some fun moments. I've actually heard Leprechaun Returns is really good. Like most people say that
Pretty
that's
solid.
like the best in the series. Yeah. And then Leprechaun Origins I watched, and that was awful. Just one of the worst films I think I've seen.
I skipped on that one on purpose just because it didn't have Warwick Davis and it didn't have like the Leprechaun making the. That's the whole part of it, right? You want to watch like the bad Freddy Krueger puns, right? That's why you're watching Leprechaun, or Chucky, or that's what you're in the movie for, is the puns and the silliness and the fun when you're into those later day sequels. So the idea of not having him in it, you're like, what are we doing here? He also did Night of the Demons 2, which is a bigger sequel than the original, but it's more comedic, and I just don't think it's very true to the series. It's a good movie. It's just not my jam. I just a little harsher on it than I should be because I'm such a big fan of the original Night of the Demons. Have you seen that one?
Night of the Demons 2 I haven't seen in a while. I've seen the first Night of the Demons many times. I don't know if I can speak much on Night of the Demons 2 actually, because I watched it once quite a while ago. But
It's kind of in the vein of like a Leprechaun movie and that kind of tone. And he had a couple other ones too. Like there's a couple rare movies, like Out of Bounds, which is from the late '80s, which I wanted to see, which is kind of a horror film, Out of Bounds, Out of Body, or something along those lines. He's had a pretty good career. I know he resides in America at this point. He was originally born in Britain and moved to Australia. His dad was Australian, so he had a very interesting career. Did a lot of different films, worked in a lot of like different places like news stations and stuff like that early in his career. So it kind of shows that he definitely has his finger on the pulse of kind of political and social issues. Even if his movies are absolutely ridiculous, he somehow puts that in there.
yeah, I think he would have been good as a director of a James Bond film. Like if you watch what he does in Turkey Shoe with a lower budget and like a small amount of extras, the action scenes look pretty well, like pretty big, large scale for a film with a small budget and small means to work with. And then if you watch Man from Hong Kong, like he clearly knows what he's doing with action. He would have been really good as a director of a James Bond movie in the late 80s when those films basically started to look like television films, especially that second Timothy Dalton film really looks like a television film. So they probably
too.
Yeah. It would have been awesome if they had brought him in to direct one of those films, because I think he would have done a good job with it.
Well, the bad guys too are over the top. I'm not as familiar with Bond as I should be. I don't dislike them. I just haven't watched very many of them. You know what I mean? It's like kind of one of those blind, along with Doctor Who. It's just like these two big blind spots, and I'm like, I never saw Doctor Who ever. So like, I know that like I played a lot of the games and stuff. And the bad guys like Jaws and Objob were just so over the top and ridiculous, but fun. So I feel like these kind of fits in that line with that kind of style. Is there anything else you want to say about Turkey Shoot?
Not that I can think of. No, but I thought one thing, Gus Mercurio, his character, when I saw that guy, I thought this guy looks like a combination of MC Gainey and William Smith together. That's what he looks like.
I was gonna say he looked like Neville Brand and who's the Michael Pataki.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He looks like all four of those guys somehow. But he doesn't have like the build of William Smith, like the muscular build. Not by far. William Smith would have been awesome in this movie as Roger.
Oh yeah,
Ward.
he would have been awesome. Yeah, like as either one of those two characters. Yeah, like those two prison guards. He would have been great.
He would have been much scarier in the Gus role. You know what I mean? Like I don't think he's been a rapist too much in movies though. I can't think of William Smith raping me. I probably kind of was. I'm not doing that. I can't see him doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he's not. Oh, I was just thinking, I was like, is he the guy in Uncle Sam who's all creepy towards the mother, but it's actually Bo Hopkins? I got them mixed up for a second. Yeah.
They're both in it, and they both die,
Yeah.
I believe. That movie is, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I like Uncle Sam. Everybody hates it. I'm fine with it. Everybody's like... there's some bad decisions in it, like not going more all out with exploitation of gore than he should have. Then Bill Lustig should have gone more all out with that in that movie. I think he seemed to have a crisis of what he wanted to do with the film, but for the most part, it's a pretty fun film. And it's got his usual, like, he likes to do this thing where he does some, like, social commentary in subtle ways, and that film has a lot to do with, like, the deification of the military in a way, and it kind of addresses it, and it's like, hey, people in the military can be good people, but they can also be bad people as well and do bad things. So it's kind of a fun film in that way. The kid is a terrible lead, but he's really bad. And I'm more tolerant to child acting than most, but he's pretty bad in that film from what I remember. Every once in a while, there's a kid actor where you're like, this kid is fucking this movie up. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's a great character actors too in that movie. I think Isaac Hayes is there. We talked to Bo Hopkins, William Smith. I think Robert Forster in that, isn't he? Robert
Forster, yeah, he's the one who gets tied to the fireworks. I think.
Is he the mayor? Somebody's the mayor too.
I think he's PJ Souls is in that one too.
It's such fun
small
crap.
part.
And people are like, "Oh, give me ice cream, man," but Uncle Sam, that's too much. I'm like, what's the difference? I'm like, what is the difference here? But I appreciate you doing this. I'm sure you'll be on again for another episode, maybe this year, or 82 or 83 or something like that. Is there anything you want to plug or anything, last words you want to say?
So you can find me on Land of the Creeps, I think, as you said at the beginning, for our Black Love Mysteries segment on the double episode, so every 2 weeks. I was just on a show called Headlong into Monsters, which I've been on before. For the last part of their Friday the 13th coverage, I helped them cover Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason, and the Friday the 13th remake. And I'll be on some podcasts upcoming as well, this one being one of them, but I'll also be on a show called Watch This Movie again for their fall coverage when they cover the Halloween remake. So look out for that as well. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Irzanomics. And my blog site is thegoodthebadandthemacabre.blogspot.com.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Any last shout-outs or movie you just watched? A new movie? Anything good?
Well, I'm just trying to think here. I'm looking forward to going to see Terrifier 3 this Friday. Currently watching the original Salem's Lot miniseries. I do want to watch that new one just to see if it's any good at all, the new movie. Give it a shot maybe one of these days here.
Just bought my tickets for Terrifier today for Friday at 10:55, so I'll check it out. I just I'm trying to see more movies in theaters. It's no excuse. The theater is literally like half a block down the street from me.
Recently I was at a convention and I got the photo op with Lauren Lavera where she's in the Terrifier 2 suit, like in the angel suit. Yeah, it was awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I look forward to it. Maybe I'll have you come on and just talk about Terrifier 3.
That would be fun.
See ya.
See ya.